Alright, microphone is on this time. So already starting on a better foot than last time. That is loud every time. Ever since the Intensity 5 earthquake hit Shibuya, the atmosphere of the town has changed for the worse. Oh my god. The hair in my mouth. Nude Gen. I just noticed it says Nude Gen. Oh, that's dumb. Also, text behind text, I gotta read over here. Crime was way up, and it wasn't just kids getting into fights anymore. There was a huge increase in theft, particularly smash and grabs. The media was using the phrase new generation to inspire feelings of danger and claustrophobia. It had gotten so bad that some stores were shutting down until all this was over. The weekly anti-new gen protests had suddenly turned into riots. A huge horde of people had descended on the Shibuya police station. They'd clashed with police over 100 people had been arrested. Just like they had with the Psychic Boy, thousands of people had appeared out of nowhere to watch and enjoy the show. There was a huge, clearly visible difference between the people who were visiting Shibuya and the ones that lived there. The former... What is that? Oh, it's... You'd think I'd know my own freaking layout by now. My own buttons and meters and... But I don't. The former type was hoping for more fun and excitement. The latter were suffering miserably from the lawlessness in the ward and begging for more police crackdowns. Oh my god. And now there's something on my eye. It's all going to shit. And I'm 5 minutes in. And then, as if to make things even worse, the 6th new gen incident happened. Of course, they hadn't caught the killer. A week had passed since the earthquake. Sometime in the past few days, the school had sent me a notice that I was suspended. I mean, yeah, that's fair. Even if I hadn't been suspended, I wasn't in a mental state to where I could go to class. Another new gen incident had happened the day after the earthquake. Just like Dr. Takashina's death, it was clearly intended as a message to me. Okay, I need this. I really hope this doesn't show up on the microphone, but I need air. Hot in here. Does not appear to be showing up on the microphone. A woman who chewed off her own right hand. It had to be a reminder of how Nanami's right hand had been severed. Even if what had happened with Nanami was just Shogun screwing with me, the thought that she could have been killed like that was terrifying. Besides that, I was now famous in a bad way, and terrified of leaving the house. If I had the option of going to live in a cave somewhere, I would have taken it. Even going to the convenience store to get food was painful. Some days, I'd eaten nothing at all. I couldn't walk with my head held up while I was outside. It always felt like somebody was laughing at me. I was scared of other people looking at me. I didn't want to talk to anybody. Some people from the media came by several times, but I ignored all of them. I hadn't called home or talked to Nanami. I even quit ESO for the time being. If somehow somebody found out that I was Nightheart, that would be just awful. A week? Was that enough time for things to calm down, or not enough? It used to be a saying that rumors would last for 75 days, but that was a long time ago. Trends changed incredibly fast now. Popular phrases would be completely forgotten by the following year. Slang that everybody used online would be dead and forgotten in months. Yeah, it's true. Every day the TV was in search of heroes, idols, and villains to consume and then to discard. Oh man, this is getting really real. Alright. Yeah. That should be enough for now. Even with New Gen, by the time of the 6th murder, Channel wasn't nearly as excited as they'd been during the 1st. Everything had disappeared from people's memories so fast. I hope that, like those other trends and fads, what had happened a week ago faded completely from people's minds. It was overly optimistic, but I couldn't help but hope anyway. My head and stomach hurt. I sat down on my usual bench to calm myself down. I knew exactly what Saratan would say if I asked her. Kill your sister, I believe is what she would say. That's not true. That's not what she said. It's basically what she said. Sarah's a bad influence. I was starting to think she'd be right. I'd heard that a lot of students were starting to stay home because of how bad the crime in Shibuya was getting. And I'd always said it never really mattered if I graduated. I was willing to drop out of school right now, actually. But still, I was going to school anyway, even if it meant potentially running into Yua. Yeah, we haven't seen her for a while. It's been a while. Wonder what's she up to these days? I gulped down the soda I'd bought from a nearby vending machine and stood up from the bench. It was time to stop lying to myself. I didn't want to go to school, but I didn't want to drop out either. If I did, I'd never see Rimi again. Right now, since we were classmates, I could see her whenever I went to school, but if we lost that connection, of course, I could call her or go to see her directly, but that required active effort on my part. It wouldn't just happen. And an active effort like that was beyond me, too. In fact, I hadn't seen Rimi in a long time. That's what she'd promised me, but she hadn't contacted me in over 10 days. Maybe she'd seen me embarrass myself on TV and decided she never wanted to talk to me again. The thought made me so scared, so sad, and so lonely. Nobody, not even Nanami, came to see me, and the internet was saying the most horrible things about me, and Yua and Shogun were still out there, waiting for me. I said I didn't want to talk to anybody, but the loneliness was killing me. I wanted Rimi to come see me. I wanted her to hold me gently and tell me she was there for me. This is really sad. I was probably relying on her too much. But it was her fault. The one who taught me how warm 3D girls could be was Rimi. Once I'd known that warmth, I wanted to experience it again and again. The peace it had given me was something I couldn't get from 2D or delusions anymore. Delusions weren't enough to keep me going. I needed to see Rimi. When I got to school, nothing much seemed to have changed. In fact, nobody noticed me. I went inside and up the stairs. I passed by a girl I'd never met who gave me a gasp and a look of pity. When I got to the hallway outside my class, where several of the windows were broken, I could hear whispers and see people openly gawking at me. I had a bad feeling. My optimistic hopes that I'd been forgotten were about to be utterly dashed. Still, I opened the door, desperate to see Rimi. There was silence for 10 seconds or so. Everybody was staring at me, and they were frozen perfectly still. I quietly walked to my seat and sat down. A Dokun-looking boy in the last row, I didn't know his name, was the first to speak.
Oi, Nishijo! 超能力見せてくんね
The rest of the class suddenly unfroze.
それ言ったらかわいそうじゃね
Aha, bully mode has activated.
だってユーリが認めた男なんだぜそうそう、俺テレビ見てたぜすげえよ、あのやらせ超能力者
西条もどうせやらせなんでしょ大きい人形と小さいお人形を抱えてただけだもんね
I understand the little doll. What is the big doll referring to? Did I forget something already? I feel.
やめとけって西条は病気なだけだっつうのそっとしといてやれだってあいつ空飛べるらしいじゃんあとなんだっけ投資
私投資されたらどうしよう。服もスケスケで裸見られる。西条変態じゃん。
お、やっべ、こっち見た、石にされる前に目をするぜ。大丈夫、実際のところただのキモートだから。
Maybe it's been too long since I've been in high school, but like, it's just not clever enough to be hurtful. I feel like obviously when you're there, I guess it is, but like, I can't even conceptually be offended by that. You know what I mean? Oh no. This is, yeah, I'd probably be feeling differently if I were there though. Social anxiety, not fun. This is what I've been most afraid of. The Dacunes had made me their target. Not a single person had forgotten what had happened a week ago. I was Japan's most famous living joke. The boy who told the whole world he had psychic powers, only to pass out holding an anime figurine. Yeah, that's rough. That is There was no point in telling them I wasn't psychic. The truth didn't even matter anymore. The whole country already had their own story about what the truth was, and it was shared by tens of millions of people. Nobody could change that now. Nobody. Not me, not the media, not even Shogun. I was the fake, self-proclaimed psychic with mental problems. I was the loser otaku creep. Nobody in the world was on my side. I hated how TV always made fun of otaku, but now I'd personally done something to damage otaku culture's reputation. I didn't have any psychic powers. I couldn't fly. I didn't have supernatural sight. I didn't have telepathy. I couldn't even get the D-sword. I was just a failure, a boy who'd given up on trying to save his sister. I was just an otaku who knew about games and anime, and nothing else. I was helpless to change any of this. Oh my god. I looked around for Rime, trying to keep my mind from breaking down right then and there. Suddenly, my eyes met Misume. He quickly, "Oh, Misume, are you gonna be a bro or are you gonna be a douche? This is like, make or break right now." Turned away from me. That's the answer. Of course that's what he'd do. If he was friends with me, he'd be an outcast from the world. He'd be an outcast. Yeah, of course. It was the most natural thing in the world. An otaku like me and a handsome boy like him lived in totally different worlds. It was honestly strange we'd been friends at all. I looked around, trying not to cry, desperately searching for Rime. But she wasn't here. Rime wasn't here. Why? Was she not here today? Today of all days? Now I had no way of contacting her. She never came back to this classroom. I'd never be able to see her again. That's how it felt. That's how it had been when she appeared, too. One day she was suddenly here, and now she was suddenly gone. Could it be that she was caught up in the earthquake and killed? I tried as hard as I could to push the negative thoughts from my mind. It didn't work. I started feeling more and more depressed. Gloomy, dark delusions were filling my heart. Did a girl named Rime Sakihara even exist? Was it possible that she was just like Seiratan, a personality I'd created in my delusions? It'd make a lot of sense if that was the case. She was always there just when I needed her. She was always kind to me, even though I was such a loser. Could somebody like that, my ideal 3D girl, always there when I needed her, really exist? Oh boy. I didn't have any reason to come to school anymore. My one reason had disappeared. It's a coin flip. I truly have no idea anymore. I was alone after all. I'd been alone the whole time. I cried inside my heart. I just barely managed to avoid crying in the real world too. My pride wouldn't allow it. It was a tiny, worthless pride, but it existed. Slumped down, gritting my teeth, was all I could do to not fall out of my chair. I could hear my classmates talking, even though I didn't want to. I wanted to run away, but I was too scared. Running might only attract even more of their attention. I wished all of them would just die. If I didn't have anything left to lose, then maybe I should end my life doing what I wanted. I don't like that reasoning. For instance, oh god, no. Maybe I could grab one. Maybe I could grab one of the girls in the class and give her a big hug, whispering filthy words right out of an H game into her ear. Okay, it looks like I'm gonna have to put my morals back in the box. All right. Villain mode activated. Maybe I could rape her right in front of the rest of the class. That's hard to say, even without my morals. I looked around the classroom, feeling a little stronger now. Who'd be a good target? If I was gonna do it, I'd want it to be somebody cute. Somebody who wouldn't fight back too much. Not any of those Dokun girls. They had way too much makeup on for their age. I didn't find them attractive at all. This is so gross. Is what I would say if I had morals. Maybe the transfer student? She seemed quiet, and she had that kind of lolly aura that made you want to bully her. Oh, and she was clumsy too. That was Moe. In a sense, she was kind of a 2D girl. Yeah, that might work. Please stop. No. Leave the morals. Don't look at them. I slowly stood up. The air in the room suddenly changed. All the people who'd been mocking me and laughing at me a moment ago pulled away a little at my sudden movement. You guys are all talk, aren't you? But I'm not. I'm a man that who does what he means to do, and I'm about to show you that too. I silently headed over to the transfer student. She was looking down at her desk and trying to make herself seem as small as possible. She looked up at me, confused. For some reason, she always looked like she was about to cry. I suddenly grabbed her thin arm. Why, with this music, this seems incredibly tonally dissonant. This seems wrong. What is this music? Why? What? I've been knocked out of character by this music. What is happening? No, villain mode, activate. I tried to pull her toward me. The transfer student resisted weakly. She was alternating between looking at me and looking at the people around her, as if she wasn't sure what to do. I wrapped my arms around her from behind. Oh my god. No. Nope. Her body was thin, so thin I thought I might snap it if I was too rough with it. She was shaking like a chihuahua, too. But she smelled good. I leaned forward and rubbed my face against her tiny head. I buried my nose in her soft hair and took a sniff. She seemed scared and was having trouble speaking. Not that I'd ever seen her speaking at all, anyway. She was trying to twist away from me, but she wasn't nearly strong enough. I had no muscles and never exercised, but even I was able to hold her easily. The Dokuns around us were all frozen, as if unsure how to react to my strange actions. I think this goes beyond strange actions. I think that's a bit of an understatement. I licked the transfer student's ear as she frantically shook her head. There are people in the other room. I just wanna make that clear right now. There's a possibility people can, I mean, obviously, people on the internet can hear what I'm saying, but like, there are other human beings in this building. I just want to make that clear. Her frail body suddenly twitched. I'll have to tell them not to watch this. I hope nobody watches this. It's like the one time I hope nobody sees this. I liked the way she reacted. It was hot. No. It was really turning me on. I decided to forget about the consequences and just do all the horrible things I wanted to do. First, the naughty words. I'd make this tiny little transfer student say all kinds of naughty words. This was awesome.
レマンコって言え。
God, stop. What the fuck? No. Her face was turning bright red. Tears were forming in her eyes as she started to shake her head even more.
クリとキリギリスって言え。
It's not what I expected. Her resistance only made by sadistic instinct stronger.
チンスコって言え。
Alright, that one's kind of funny. None of this is funny. I mean, all of this is funny. What? Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and take my morals back. I'm so sorry. Oh god, no, I didn't want to say any of that. Oh, I feel awful. I hate everything I just had to say. I hate all of it. I hate it. Alright. Alright. Moving on. That got a little weird at the end. That was the best part of it. I stayed glued to my seat, imagining forcing the transfer student to do all kinds of humiliating things. Oh, it's not over. Awesome. If my life was over anyway, I at least wanted to end it. Wanted it to end with me having some fun. The more I thought about it, the stronger the desire became. The instant I did something that crazy, maybe the world would be reset. Then the world my brain was showing me now, where I'd made a wrong choice and gotten onto the bad route, would end. And then I go back to my old world. I don't like. Why is this the music? This should have been the music earlier. Rimi would be there. Misumi would still talk to me. Everybody would forget how I'd embarrassed myself. Nobody would make fun of me. Maybe I should try it. My head was starting to feel fuzzy, and I was having trouble concentrating. Maybe I had a fever. Was my head overheating from thinking too much? Or from too many delusions? I didn't know if you could do that. Well, whatever. Maybe I should try it. Don't try it. Don't do that. If I couldn't go back to my old world, they'd just think I was crazy. No, they already thought that. If I had nothing left to lose, then did it even really matter? A week ago, when the nurse had told me Nanami was alive, I thought that was all I needed. I thought that if Nanami was alive, nothing else mattered. My life didn't matter. I didn't care if they thought I was crazy and sent me to the hospital. I hoped it was the same hospital as Ayase. Where did she end up anyway? That prison-like hospital she'd supposedly been in before? Even that would be preferable. It'd at least be a little better than being at school without Rimi. The impulse to do something awful was boiling up like magma, and I was losing my capacity to control it. I slowly stood up. Don't do it. The laughter started bubbling up, but I couldn't stop it. The whole class was staring at me, their expressions frozen on their faces. Don't look at me. I'm not worth looking at. And suddenly, I heard a girl's voice. It sounded like an anime girl, too.
この前飛び降り自殺をしようとした人を助けたのは西条くんだもん。だから西条くんにはたくさん価値はあるよ。
What is happening? Who was that? Who was speaking to me? I looked around the classroom again. Everyone was still frozen silent at my strange behavior. I couldn't see anyone speaking. And anyway, that voice felt strange, like it was coming from directly inside my head. Was I hearing things? Or had I created another girl in my delusions?
幻聴なんかじゃないのら。妄想でもない。
Huh? What was that? There was an answer to what I just thought? Were they reading my mind? No, it must be a delusion after all.
コズピーはここにいるよ。
What the action?
オズピーってなんだよ。ここってどこ？誰なの？
I don't. I yelled. My classmates practically ran to get away from me.
西条くんに価値がないなんて、そんなの全然違う。
There was no answer to my question. The strange voice was continuing.
むしろ。
I don't have any more, like, I don't have anything else to add. I'm lost. I'm lost and broken, and I think I just need to read the words on screen. I think that's all I have left. I'm not even half an hour into this, and I have nothing. I have nothing left. Okay.
西条くんのことをひどく言うクラスのみんなの方が価値がないから。
I shivered. The voice kept talking to me in that happy, chipper tone, and this was the next thing it said.
いいと思うなら殺しても。
Please stop it. I sat back down in my chair, leaning forward with my head in my hands. The world didn't reset. I didn't go back to a parallel world with Remy in it. Instead, it looked like I'd gone totally insane. Okay. I like this guy. This guy's pretty sick. When Bond came back to Freesia's office for the first time in a week, things looked a little different. The piles of paper on the desks were nowhere to be seen. They'd probably all fallen over during the earthquake, and Momose had ordered them cleaned up. The place looked a lot nicer now, actually. Bond sighed and sat down in the chair he'd dragged over from one of the desks. He waved his fan in front of his face, exhausted. Momose was in front of him, typing into her laptop. She looked up at the gloom on his face and furrowed her brow.
なーに？来るなりため息なんてついて。
なあ、ももちゃん。何にもないとこから剣が出てくるって手品見たことあるかい？
そう。手品なんて詳しくないから。
じゃあ瞬間移動は？
箱の中に入ってとかそういうこと？
いやそうじゃなくて。
一体何が言いたいわけ？宴会芸でも覚えたいの？
え、わかんないんだね。多分関係ないことだからさ。
変な人ね。
Momose shrugged and popped a sweet kinsuba cake that Bond had brought her into her mouth.
どうぞ、お茶っす。
Sua brought over 2 paper cups. Steam was pouring off the green tea within them.
あら悪いわね、スワちゃん。お茶組なんてさせちゃって。今日美穂ちゃん風邪で休んでて。
いや、大丈夫っす。
He gave her a brilliant smile as he handed the cups to her and Bond. Sua had come here before when he and Bond had been working on a different case. Ever since then, he'd looked up to Momose as his teacher, more than he looked up to his partner, Bond. Damn. Momose seemed to like the young, hard-working Sua, and wasn't as harsh with him as she was with Bond. Damn.
それより何の話してたんすか？
Poor Bond.
どうやったら父兄に受ける宴会芸を覚えられるかって相談をな。
はあ、そりゃ興味深いっす。
スワちゃん、こんなダメ刑事なんかといつまでもつるんでちゃダメよ。もっと優秀な上司に就くのおすすめするわ。でないとあなたの出世街道が断たれちゃう。
まるで俺が出世絶望的みてえな言い方だな。
事実でしょ。悔しかったらもっと真面目に仕事しなさい。
してるんだがな。
Bond seemed unsatisfied, but Momose ignored him and offered Sua the box of kinsuba cakes.
スワちゃんも食べ
I
て。
don't know what that is. I'll have to Google that later.
あ、どうもっす。
言っとくが、それは俺が自腹で買ってきたもんだぞ。
先輩、いただきます。
As Sua reached for a kinsuba cake, Bond let out another sigh.
それより二人ともこれを見て。
The laptop was showing a line graph. The line was like a wave, slowly going up and down. Sua walked around behind Ban and looked down at the screen, confused.
これ何のグラフっすか？
ここ1年の渋谷近辺の G レートよ。おかしいと思わない？
渋谷の平均 G レートが世界的に見ても高いってのはももちゃんに教えてもらったんだぜ。
そうじゃなくて気のせいかもしれないけど G レートが何者かによって操作されてるような気がするの。
そんなことできるんすか？
さあでもグラフを見るとなんだか不自然なのよね。数値が小刻みに変動しすぎてる。10年ぐらい前まで遡って調べてみたんだけどここ5年くらいはずっとそんな調子なのよ。
前に太田教授だっけか、その人が言ってたなんだっけ、 G レートが半年前から増加してるとかなんとか、その辺と関係あんのかい？
太田教授の調査では G レートはそんなに細かい変動は起こさないっていうことなのよ。
何らかの異常が起こってて、そこに人為的なものを感じるってことか。
でも5年っすよ。それだけ続いてれば異常じゃなくて正常な状態と言えなくもないんじゃないですか？
もう一つあるの。グラフを細かく調べていくと G レートは毎週末に伸びる傾向にあるのよ。
週休2日のサラリーマンにはありがたいこったな。俺には関係ねえけど。
ああ、土日に休み欲しいっすね。自分もう2ヶ月休みなしっすよ。
I think they may be missing the point. Momose shook her head a little at the two detectives, who both suddenly had gloomy looks on their faces.
茶化してる場合じゃないわ。1週間ごとに定期的に変動してるのよ。しかも年末年始やお盆休みなんかは変動がピタリと止まる。何かの意志が働いているとしか思えないわ。
年末年始やお盆休みがあるのって人間だけだよな。動物や植物はそんなもんあるわけねえもんな。
実は地球の意志とか。
地球の意志？随分壮大な話だな。だがもし仮にそんなもんがあったとして地球が明けましておめでとうとか言うかや。
冗談っすよ。
年末年始はともかくお盆休みは日本にしかない風習よね。
日本人の社会活動と同期しすぎてか。
渋谷っすから当然なんじゃ。
ちなみにこことここ見て。
Momose pointed to a spot in the middle of the graph, and then another at the very far right. The latter was the last day shown.
この2箇所はすごく伸びているでしょ。
一番右はこの1年の最高記録みたいだな。
1年どころかこの10年で最高よ。
日付は？
真ん中は3ヶ月前。覚えてる？小さな地震があったでしょ。
ああ、震度3でなぜか8人も死んだ。あれか。あの犠牲者ってなんで死んだのか理由はまだ特定できてないんじゃなかったか？
さあ、そうでしたっけ？
Momose ignored the two detectives and continued.
で、一番右はこの間の地震の日。あの日大規模な電磁波が発生したのは知ってるわよね。
渋谷中のコンピューターが壊れたらしいな。俺はアナログ人間だからよくわからんな。
自分も自宅のノーパソがやられたっす。普及してる暇がなくて。
あれは地震の影響で電磁波が起きたって言われてるけど真相は全く逆かもしれない。電磁波の影響で地震が起きた。
おいおい、そんなことテレビや新聞じゃ言ってなかったぞ。
あくまで私の推測だけどこの2つの地震は天災じゃなくて人災かもって思ってるの。だってどっちも普通じゃないもの。 前の地震では震度3っていう規模なのに8人も亡くなってるし、そして今回は震度5で118人。
死にすぎって言いたいのか。
さっきバンちゃん言ったでしょ、亡くなった方の大半は死因が不明って。そんなの尋常じゃないわ。
まあ確かに。
それに空が白く染まったっていう噂もある。
そういえば時間が経つにつれて全く報道されなくなった。
マスコミに何らかの圧力があったのかもね。
まさか。
明和党か。
おそらくそうよ。
マジっすか？
明和党とつながりのある企業団体を洗うべきかな。
もうやったわよ。
さすがももちゃん、相変わらず仕事早いね。で、
Momose raised up her hands and stretched. She tilted her head a little, and you could hear the sound of her neck popping.
それらしい当たりはなし。お手上げよ。
お手上げってももちゃん。
やっぱももちゃんさんの推測が間違いなんじゃ。
そうかもしれないわね。これでも結構時間かけて調べたのよ。本業そっちのけでね。でも行き詰まっちゃったわ。よほど巧妙に隠されているか。スワちゃんの言う通り、私の推測が見当外れでしかないのか。
こういう時は別の方向から攻めてみるってのがデカの鉄則だぜ。
先輩、なんか心当たりあるんすか？
Bon stopped waving himself with his fan and licked his lip.
週末に G レートが上がって得するやつって誰なんだろうな。
Are you just gonna leave me with that, huh? Well, shit, now I have to think about it. I was hoping they'd just tell me. I don't... The strange voice had stopped, but I couldn't take being in the classroom anymore. I stayed in the bathroom for hours until afternoon classes were over. The only reason I didn't go straight home was that I was still hopeful I might see Rimi. So, after school ended and everyone had gone home, I went back to the empty classroom. Rimi was waiting there. She turned to me and smiled.
石どこ行ってたの？
Was she really, though? Was she really and truly? I don't know if I believe
一
that.
緒に帰ろっか、タク。
I thought maybe she'd be there to say that to me. I hoped that maybe, somehow, that would happen. But... classroom was empty. Nobody was waiting for me. I tried going to the courtyard. This was where Rimi had said she'd be with me. But now there was nobody here. Okay, stop fiddling with that. Nothing moved but the lonely purple blossoms in the flower beds, which swayed in the cold autumn wind. I took out the red handkerchief from my bag. It was the one Rimi had given me. I tried sniffing it, but the floral smell was gone. Maybe it had disappeared when I'd washed it that one time. I had the handkerchief, but the scent was gone. I had the memories, but Rimi was gone. I was out here, wishing to meet a girl who maybe only existed in my head.
なんて。
But then where'd the handkerchief come from, man? I was wandering the school after classes were over. My brain just like skipped. Like the record skipped. I don't know what that was.
僕って。
With a girl's handkerchief up against my lips. I was so creepy I wanted to throw up. Also, that That thing you made me read earlier, Takumi, that was also not cool. Didn't appreciate that. I mean, we're still cool and everything, but like, I didn't like it. I left the school and started to wander around the city with no real goal in mind. I'd just stopped caring about everything. I wasn't even worried that Shogun or Yua might find me anymore. If anything, I was hoping they'd just kill me, preferably in a way that wasn't painful. My mood was one of complete depression. And seeing the way Central Shibuya looked right now only made me feel worse. Nobody had a smile on their face. Everyone was glaring at the people around them. It felt like a fight could break out at any minute. Just by walking around, I could see that some of the shops would normally be bustling with customers had actually lowered their shutters all the way. And I couldn't be sure, but it looked like there were fewer cars too. Even the loud TVs in front of the station were silent. Instead, there was the distant howling of police sirens, angry horns, and screeching tires. There were no traces of the mess I'd caused last week. Even if it wasn't gone from individuals' memories, maybe it had long since vanished from the memories of the town. I wished I could forget the memories myself. To know nothing, to be ignorant, to be stupid, that must be really nice. Oh, ain't that the truth?
無知は罪だ。知らない方が幸せなこともあるという人間もいる。そんなのはただの甘えだ。
I mean, it is. It's easy to think that. It's easy to be like, oh, I wish I'd just not worry about anything, but I don't know. I like thinking too much. That's what Senna had said. But what's wrong with being naive? I wasn't that strong. I was always looking for someone else to help me. I couldn't do anything on my own. I didn't want to do anything. I stood in the middle of the street and closed my eyes. My biggest problem right now was that I knew some things, but not everything. I knew about things like Shogun and the D-Sword, things I didn't even want to know. But if somebody asked me what they were, I couldn't explain. I didn't have the answers. Maybe I should just die, I thought to myself as I looked up at Outfront. If you die, are your memories reset so you can play again? Tell me, person controlling me. Your role-playing has failed completely this game. You leveled up all the wrong stats for your character. Oh man, now this is getting personal. You should have made him more like a hero. Somebody who was social and outgoing, kind to women and a friend to the weak, and a foe to the strong. Somebody with a sense of justice who could choose between right and wrong. You won't be able to beat the last boss with me. You won't be able to beat the game. Don't have any hopes for me. Reset the game. Please, I'm worthless. Delete me. Man, this is... But I wasn't deleted. Yeah, no, you're good. Instead, somebody slammed into my shoulder.
Oi! 邪魔なんだよ.
I thought I was hallucinating again. This morning I'd hallucinated a girl's voice, so now it was a man's voice maybe. Nobody wanted to hear a man's voice. Give me something moe, something hot. And then have her whisper naughty things in my ear. I'll get a boner even though I'm in the middle of town.
無視してんじゃねえぞ。
なあてめえ、西条だな。
どうなんだ、やらせ超能力少年。
この前テレビ出てたよな。ギャラいっぱいもらったんだろ。
ちょっと顔貸せよ、エスパー君。
Clown ass clowns. I opened my eyes. There were 3 men surrounding me. They were all wearing baggy clothes. They had gold, silver, and brown hair. 2 of them had piercings in their eyes, ears, and nose. Not their eyes. That would be a painful piercing. It's like, oh yeah, my eyeball was pierced. One of them had piercings in his ears. One just had piercings in his ears. They were stereotypical thugs, dressed like something you would have seen years ago. If anything, they belonged in a museum. Well, there's the death flag. Or was this another thing where I was experiencing the bad route that came after I made the wrong choice? The bad stuff just kept coming. I don't even care anymore. Just kill me so I can reset and be reborn. And reset and reborn? Whatever. Do you have a knife on you or something? When you stab me, make sure I die instantly, okay? I was so scared my knees were shaking. I shouted out of pure instinct. It was closer to a scream than a shout, but I didn't care. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I lied when I said I didn't care. I know things are bad, but I don't want to die. One put a hand over my mouth so I couldn't scream, and the other two grabbed my arms. Man, this is happening in the middle of town? What the hell's going on here? I stopped resisting. They took me into an empty alleyway. As they grinned at me, I decided to launch a preemptive attack. I got down on my knees and begged in a shaky voice. It's a pretty strong hope. I offered them my wallet. One of the Dacunes snatched it out of my hands.
お前金持ちだな。さすが超能力少年だぜ。お前いいやつじゃん。俺気に入っちゃったよ。
I let out a sigh of relief as I kneeled on the ground. It looked like they were going to let me go.
俺らの仲間に入れてやるよ。入会金は100万円な。これ強制。本当はすぐ払ってもらうとこだけどよ。今日の夜までにしてやるよ。まあ、なんか超能力使って見せてくれたら半額にしてやってもいいけどな。
なんか言えよ。
超能力見せろっつってんだよ。できねえの。
できねえのかっつってんだよ。
I felt a sharp pain in my side. I might have broken a rib. I couldn't breathe. I was passing out. I was feeling dizzy. Then I saw the foot of the Dacune in front of me. It was coming toward my face at incredible speed. Oh, boy. It's not looking good. What happened? I felt like there was incredible pain in my face, but maybe it was a delusion. I tried to open my eyes, but my eyelids wouldn't move. The darkness wouldn't go away.
だよ、もう伸びたのか？
どうする？このくらいにしとく？もうちょっと痛みつけといた方がいいんじゃね？あのダーススパイダーの兄ちゃんもそう言ってたじゃん。
Alright, I'm gonna be honest, I was not expecting that.
ボコボコにしてくれって言ってた。
こいつボコるだけで金くれるなんて、よっぽどこいつのこと嫌いなのかもな。
So is this all just like Shogun is still going? I'm guessing this is still like part of the, he wants him to get the sword, and so like I don't know, maybe this he's clearly like putting him in desperate situations because that'll make the sword appear or something like that. But this is demented. This is awful.
続きます。
俺らのこと恨まないでね。
Shogun, you suck. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I want to kill you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I want to kill you. I don't know if this is all coming from the same... I don't know what's happening anymore.
おい、何土地狂ってんだよ。ふざけんなよ。なんだそれ。おい、よせ。やめろ。
Someone to the rescue? I can't, like, at this point, I don't know if it's someone to the rescue or if he's like, he just got up and started kicking ass. I don't even know anymore.
やめて。やだ。
I'm guessing someone swooped in to save the day. I want to say Senna, but I truly can't. I really can't imagine her giving that much of a shit. Like, unless they were carrying backpacks, but I don't think they were. I mean, I didn't see them, so I guess for all I know. Oh, good. Hi, buddy. Hey, buddy, how you been? The weak light of the setting sun was pouring through the window of the hospital room. The color of the sunset split the room cleanly between light and shadow. Inside the light was a bed with pure white sheets, portable gaming system sitting by the pillow, rows of academic books sitting on the shelf, light pink cosmos flower sitting in a vase. Oh yeah, and Shogun sitting in the corner also. The room was neat and organized. Nothing moved. It was a room where time had stopped. Near the window, where the sunlight shone through, there was someone small sitting in a wheelchair. His back was to the window, and he wasn't moving. His breathing was so gentle and deep that you wonder if he might be dead. His skin was wrinkled, his cheeks caved in. His eyes sank deep into his skull. He had no hair at all on his head. I mean, he might. He's wearing a beanie. Looking at him, it was unclear if he was a boy or an old man. The shadow of the room... The shadow of the one who called himself Shogun stretched all the way to the room's door. Yeah, whenever I see him, I always, like, he looks to me like a very sickly boy. He doesn't, like, I don't interpret him as, like, an old man. He looks more just like a really sickly, maybe, like, 20-something. For the first time, it's just like my own process. I don't know. For the first time, the world moved. The door slowly opened, and someone came from the dark hallway into the evening light. Rimi Sakihara stood at the entrance to the room. She didn't come in any further. The setting sun illuminated her face, revealing the tension in her expression.
もうやめよう。残念だけど、あの彼は、西条匠は消すべきだよ。
Shogun didn't respond to her words at all.
どうして？
危険だから。
There was a sadness and pain in her voice. She may not have realized it, but there were tears in her eyes.
私が消そうか。
ダメだよ。
Rimi couldn't tell if his lips were even moving.
彼にはやってもらわなくちゃいけないことがあるんだ。
Rimi's head slumped forward. Her hair fell forward along with it, and she brushed it back with her fingers.
例えば、あなたは夢に見たことを覚えていられる？
うん。
そっか。私、すぐ忘れちゃうんだ。
できる人とできない人がいる。
できる人はきっとロマンチストなんだね。
すごく長い夢をよく見るよ。見ている間は何年にも感じられる。
私もそうだった。そうだった気がする。でもそれは幻。実際の時間としては寝ているうちのほんの 2,3 秒程度のものなんだって。夢って心の歌方なの。だから早く目覚めてでないといつかあなたは西条匠に殺されちゃう。
それでも構わないよ。夢から覚めるわけにはいかない。この夢は完結させなくちゃ。
完結した夢の後には何が残るの
I am so lost. Someone softly shook my shoulders. It was a very hesitant shake, and after the one time, they quickly pulled away. Someone was peering into my face. At least, that's what it felt like. I was slowly beginning to wake up. As I did, the pain came back to me. Something stunk. Bad. It was a strong, raw scent. The scent of blood. The area around my upper lip stung. There was a metallic taste all throughout my mouth. I slowly opened my eyes. Did she whoop all their asses? Is that what happened? Was it her? Cause that's incredible. I was in the alley I'd been in a moment ago. I was lying face down on the asphalt. Right in front of me was a pool of dark brown water that looked like it had dripped out of a garbage can. Gross. I winced at the awful stench and stood up. My whole body ached. The area around my face hurt the most. It was hot and stinging, like someone had brought a lighter right up close to my face. There was a girl leaning leaning down right next to me, looking at me like she was about to cry. It was the transfer student, the girl who transferred into my class. What was her name again? Orihara? What was she doing here? She offered me something. My wallet. Why did she have it? I looked around, still feeling woozy. The 3 Dakuns who'd been hassling me were lying on the ground, covered in blood. What the hell happened here? They'd gotten the crap kicked out of them. All their faces were so smashed in I could barely recognize them. Were they dead? They weren't moving at all. Was this the 7th New Gen incident? Who could have done this? Was it me? Did I do it? The transfer student stood up and beckoned me, her face pale. She kept looking at me, and then the 3 men on the ground, tears forming in the corners of her eyes. Then suddenly she grabbed my hand and started to run. When we got out to the main street, she finally let go. We hadn't run that far, but she was already exhausted. We both fell silent. Maybe she was like me, not really good at talking to other people. No, that didn't matter right now. What was going on here? Those 3 Dakuns had picked a fight with me and were beating me up. I must have passed out. I wondered how long I was lying there. I mean, after the last one, I don't think I'm ever picking green again. I don't think I can ever do green again. And then something's gonna happen with red and I'm gonna... I don't even know if I want to do these anymore, man. I would go red. I don't even know. There it is again. I was hearing it again. I thought that maybe somebody I knew was close by and talking to me, but I couldn't see anybody else around. Crap, why was I suddenly hearing things? Oh my god. Please don't be awful. Please don't be awful. Please, I beg of you, don't be awful. Which meant... I jerked my head up toward the sky. Is this an audio attack from Shogun? Was he reading my mind? I thought he was gonna be like, God, is that you? He was attacking me from satellite orbit. I dropped to the ground, holding my hands over my head to protect me. He was gonna kill me. This time he was really gonna kill me. I hadn't done what he wanted at O-Front, and now he was mad and coming after me. What should I do? Where could I go to escape him? Then I realized just how screwed I was. There was nowhere to run. He could attack me with an invisible weapon from space, anywhere on Earth. He could almost certainly penetrate through any kind of covering. For as long as I was in Japan, at least, there was nowhere to run or hide. I was finished. It was over for me. What the hell is a Kozupi? Are you trying to make me let my guard down with that moe anime voice? Why? Why are you stalking me? What the fuck? What the hell is happening? What are you gonna do to me? Blow up my head? Melt my brain out my ears? Or just kill my brain and turn me into a vegetable? Please, no. I don't want to die. As I crouched on the ground, shivering in fear, someone poked me on the shoulder. I looked up, trembling. The transfer student was still there. As she poked me, she tried to whisper something, but seemingly failed. Instead, she nervously raised her hand. Is it her? Hold on, is that her? Am I? Oh my god, it's her. Oh my god, it's her. I feel like I was supposed to realize that sooner, but I'm thick and oh my god. That's hilarious. Okay, so that's a Kozupi. Alright, great.
それとコズピーは転校生じゃなくて折原梢なのら。
Kozue Orihara. I vaguely remembered hearing the name a long time ago from Misumi. Kozue. Kozupi. No way. So you're sending this voice directly inside my head. She nodded again and again, as hard as she could. Hold on, when she first showed up, I vaguely remember having a moment where I was like, did she just say something into his brain, and then it seemed that way, and then later I was like, I think I misinterpreted that. Apparently I didn't misinterpret that. I need to go back and watch that part to see like what, because I vaguely remember that, and what the hell? Okay, so she's the psychic kid.
テレパシー。
仕組みはよくわかんないのら。でもできるの。
That's impossible. So this voice was actually coming from the girl in front of me?
西条くん、大丈夫？
Her head was still slumped forward, but her eyes were turned up at me. She pointed a finger at my face. It was shaking.
タラリーって出てる。
I touched my face. The area under my nose was wet. My nose had been bleeding. She took out a packet of tissues from her pocket. I used it to wipe away the blood, feeling really creeped out. The transfer student...
コズピーだよ。
Kozupi's mouth wasn't moving. She wasn't speaking. So how could I hear her?
心の声なのら。
That's really funny that he's like wondering these things, but she can hear everything. That's actually really funny. Stop ending your sentences like that. It's weird when 3D girls do it.
ごめん。
Wait, you can hear my thoughts? Okay. I'm gonna give him a break because he just got beat up, but yeah.
聞こえるよ。
Glad we caught up with that.
普通に話さないなんで？
Can she not? I can't remember if she has spoken out loud. Can she not, or does she just not?
恥ずかしいし。
Okay. Question answered. I see. I understood how that felt. I was the same way. Her gaze suddenly darted back and forth like a little animal, before glancing at me and walking off toward the station on her own. Also, I just realized, if she can... Hold on. If she can, like, hear and read his thoughts, she saw that whole thing earlier. That thing that I don't want to talk about. She saw that whole thing. I wonder if that's why it ended so weirdly. Because she was, like, interacting with it. That's so fun. So she saw that entire deeply upsetting thing.
ここ離れた方がいいと思う。
It's really fun. I wonder if they're gonna address that, or if like you just have to infer that, because that's so funny. Why I followed? Trying it again. Why I followed, confused. As I walked, I realized something. There was a stabbing pain in my side. Each step I took ached so much that I had to stop. I held my side and took a moment to catch my breath. There were so many people here. I hated Shibuya. I felt like everybody I passed was laughing at me. I felt like everybody was looking at me. It started to feel like everybody knew who I was. Because they do, dude. It sucks. You're like, don't look at me. Don't laugh at me. I need to rest somewhere without a lot of people around.
ほいじゃあいいところがあるならご案内します。
I'd only met Kozupi a few times at school, but now she was like a completely different person. And even though in the real world she was completely silent, in her mind she was...
ああ、今うるさい女って考えた。
She's interacting with his inner monologue. That's... I don't know if that's gonna get old. That's really funny. It was convenient to be able to talk to somebody mentally, but it was also obnoxious. And wait a second, how did this even work? Was it a real psychic power?
やっぱりコズピーのこと気味悪いよね。
I mean, that's a fair question, actually. Like, can she do this with other people, or is it just
こ
him?
んなの普通じゃないし。
Can she read other people's minds? I mean, clearly she knows about it, so probably, but the fact that it's not normal people doesn't... What? The fact that it's not normal doesn't really bother me. I've met a lot of weird people lately. You might talk funny, but you're not scary or crazy, so you're a lot better than some of them.
そう言ってもらえるとうるうるってなっちゃうのら。
Kozupi suddenly started to cry as she walked. Surprised, I handed back the tissues. She wiped her eyes with one of them, giving me a bow that was deeper than it needed to be. So anyway, having you read all my thoughts is creepy and uncomfortable, too. That's my honest opinion.
そうだよね。ごめんなさい。
So,
でも聞きたくなくても聞こえちゃうの。
is that true?
そうなの。
Well, I'm sure you don't want to hear that from a creepy otaku like me, of course. I'm a creepy loser and totally worthless.
そんなことない。
Wait, that also means she's the one who was telling him to kill everyone earlier. Or was that also part of the delusion? I cannot remember. No, that was after. Yeah, she was being like, you're not worthless. Kill everyone. Kill them all. I'm so lost. Just as I was starting to go back to my depression mode, I heard Kozupi shout in my mind.
ダメだよ。そんなこと言っちゃ。そんな悲しいこと。
She started crying again. Why are you crying? Are you pitying me? If so, then you don't need to do that. I'm such a weirdo. I make up girls in my head and pretend they're real, like Rimi.
それって咲畑さんじゃなかった。咲畑さんのこと？
You know her?
だってクラスメートだよ。西条くんの彼女さんなのら。
Busted. No, she's not.
あ、違うの？てっきりそうだとばっかり思ってた。
Kozupi knew Rimi. That could only mean one thing. Rimi was really... I'm sorry. She wasn't a delusion. She wasn't somebody I'd invented in my head. She was a real person.
そうか。
Whew. The But then why wouldn't she make any effort to contact me? Maybe she'd given up on me after what happened at Ofrent.
崎畑さん、地震があったあの日、青い顔をして早退して行っちゃったのら。それ以来、学校来てないよ。もしかして家族に何か悲しいことがあったかも。
Oh. I felt so much better. Knowing that Rimi hadn't given up on me after all made me feel like I was going to cry. I had a reason to go to school again. I wanted to see Rimi. Until she came back, I would keep forcing myself to go to school every day.
気をつけてね。
Huh?
西条くんが崎畑さんと付き合ってるって思ってたから言わなかったけど崎畑さんには気をつけて。
She better elaborate. You can't just drop something like that and be like, all right, just trust me. You gotta be careful around that person. It's like, okay, but why? What does that mean?
崎畑さんはよくわかんないのら。
What does that mean? Oh, can she not read her thoughts, I wonder? She's like unique in that way, maybe? You don't understand her? You mean the crucified murder? Or are you talking about all my memories of her being my classmate since our first year was... Okay. Or are you talking about how all my memories of her being my classmate since our first year were missing? She was still mysterious in a lot of ways, sure. But she'd been there for me so many times. When I was scared, she offered to be by my side. She wasn't my enemy. Don't mind yell at her. For some reason, Kozupi looked dizzy.
そんなに一度にいっぱい考えられると。コズピー、ついていきにゃい。
Sorry? It was kind of strange. When I was talking to people, I always had trouble getting out even a fifth of what I was trying to say. But talking like this might mean I'd have to work on not thinking too much. It was probably the same way for Kozupi. I didn't think she'd talk so much in her mind.
喋ってるっていう感覚は薄いよ。考えてるだけ。それが流れ込むだけ。相手にはビビーって、相手からは
Her mouth is
ドワー
moving.
って。
Her mouth is moving. Did she say that out loud?
慣れてないと自分の思考と相手の思考がごちゃごちゃってなってにゃーってなるの。
Why was her mouth moving? Was that supposed to happen? I'm baffled right now. I'm baffled. Like, please to speak Japanese kifex. I mean, I kind of get the nuance, but I guess she meant that there are none of the more subtle points of conversation. And you never have to worry about being too scared about what the other person would think, not being able to say what you wanted to say. You couldn't try to read the room if every single thought you had was being shared. It wasn't one-way communication, but maybe it wasn't two-way communication either. Maybe it was like trying to focus on one out of a million things at once, and ignoring the rest.
だから気楽だし距離感も近いけど傷つくことも簡単なの。
She frowned for a moment, but then an expression appeared on her face that was halfway between a smile and a sob.
西条くんは初めてなのにすんごく上手だよ。
I'm guessing she learned that from Suwa. He's very good at the half smile, half frown. He's like a master of it. I'm still confused about the nature. Like, does she do this with other people? Like, do people know she can do this? I'm very confused. She acts like she talks to people like this all the time. Like, I'm very confused about the nature of how this works.
コズピーとビビビが合うの。
Beep beep beep. That's really funny. Beep beep beep, huh? Maybe she was saying we're on the same wavelength?
そう波長波長
Well, I was having similar conversations in my head with Seiratan. Maybe that was why.
あでもあの時の西条くんは怖かったの。おぴー
Oh my god. They're gonna bring it up. No! Don't talk about it. I don't want to remember it, even. Then?
今日の朝教室で
Crap. Come to think of it, I'd had some weird, nasty delusions.
だからうひゃーって思ってつい声をかけちゃったのら。本当はなるべくこの力を他の人に知られないようにしようって決めてたのに。
No, I was kind of in a bad place then. And, well, it was just a delusion. Yeah, most people would find that disgusting.
きっとそれを本当にやってたらコズピーは西条くんを殺してたよ。
Ooh, boy. Huh? The gap between her tone and her words made me shiver. I mean, yeah, she said something equally crazy this morning after that situation. Had he forgotten? We walked through Center Street silently, talking to each other in our minds, and headed out to Inokashira Street. If you didn't know the truth, you might think from the way that we were walking along silently, without really looking at each other, that we were a couple that had just started dating. Kozupi let out a gasp next to me. Her eyes went wide as she looked up at me. No, it was just a hypothetical.
まだふひゃーってさせられたのら。西条くんにラブ告白されたかと。
Sorry. It's hard when somebody can hear your every thought. It was probably best to keep my delusions to a minimum when talking to Kozupi.
聞きたいな。先週の西条くんがテレビに出てた時のこと。
You wouldn't believe me if I told you.
それ決めつけ。うぐー。コズピーはあの時下にいたんだよ。
Below?
スクランブル交差点、ハチ公口の改札前、ちょうど通りかかって。あの時ずっと声聞こえてたよ。西条くんの声。ナナミさんを助けたい、助けなきゃって聞こえたよ。
My thoughts carried that far? There was a pretty big distance between the roof of Oakfront and the turnstiles at the station. Also, it's surprising considering how many people there would have been between the two of them. Like, how does her power work? Like, she said she can't control it. Like, she can't not hear people. So she would have been hearing the I don't know.
それだけ
I don't know.
あの時の西条くんの思いは強かったのら。
So you would know then. You'd know I wasn't up there pretending to be a psychic for attention.
だから価値はなくないよ。なく
No, that's good. Triple negative is still negative. But in the end, I failed. I chose to save my own life instead of saving hers. I ran away at the last minute. Kozupi stopped right in front of the Roft building. She pointed at the entrance as she looked at me. This was, evidently, the place she'd wanted to take me. Roft was a store that sold cosmetics, kitchenware, and little knickknacks. It's like a Bed Bath & Beyond. I couldn't imagine there being any place to rest there. It was a cramped space that was filled with people. My legs were shaking. The cheers and angry yells that I'd heard that night in Scramble Crossing started to echo in my head. I didn't want to go anywhere with so many people around. If I went inside the raft, there'd be nowhere to run.
大丈夫だよ。
She ignored my fear and headed inside. I had no choice but to quickly follow, trying my best not to look at the people around me. When we got up on the up escalator, Kozupi turned around to look at me. She was a step ahead of me, but she was so tiny we were about the same height.
ナナミちゃんは助かったんだよね。だったら西条くんが頑張ったおかげだよ。
I hadn't been the one to save her. I hadn't really done anything.
屋上から手を伸ばしてたよね。何をしようとしたの？ビョーンって飛ぼうとしたのかな？
No, I was trying to get a sword. It's made out of delusions, and I could kind of see it from up there on the roof.
理想度？
Yeah, that's right. They said if I stretched out my hand, I could grab it, but it didn't work.
なんで
I suddenly shouted aloud. A couple on the down escalator opposite us glared at me, and I could quickly put my hand over my mouth. Kozupi, how do you know about the D-swords? She can read your mind, dude. That's... I mean, I guess he didn't call it a D-sword, but, like... I still don't know how her power works. I guess I shouldn't be making assumptions.
コズピーも持っているもん。
Oh! Neat. We got off the escalator at the 5th floor, and Kozupi casually raised her right hand above her head. It was like she was trying to block out the brightness of the sun. She has a freaking sword. Suddenly, a light appeared in midair right next to her hand. No, it wasn't a light, it was a line. You could say it looked like a wireframe. Rays of light overlapped in what had only a moment ago been empty space, forming something that looked like a snowboard. Then, rays of blue light, brighter than the rays of the wireframe, streamed out of it. Kozubi closed her open hand. Oh my god. That's a weird sword. What had been a wireframe instead became a heavy, cold slab of metal. Like someone had pasted textures on it.
理想度
That's like that one sword in Dark Souls 3 where it's just like a big chunk of rock. Except it doesn't have a handle. That I cannot imagine using a sword like that. That looks absurd. No, I refuse to go green again. I'm never doing it again. Never green. I can't do it. It looked completely different than the ones Ayase and Senna had, but it had the same kind of intensity about it. It was far too malevolent to be a simple board, and far too unadorned to be a sword. It combined an innocent ferocity with a destructive beauty. Innocent ferocity? I don't even know what that means. And she held it above her head like it weighed nothing at all. Why would Kozupi have a D-sword?
だってコズピーは
She turned to face me, an innocent smile was still on her face.
将軍さんの手下だもん。
The huge snowboard-like blade, it whipped through the air in a flash. Oh, snap.
え
Game over. Bad end. I couldn't understand what had just happened to me. It was all over before I could react. Kozupi was holding the D-sword tight to her tiny body, embracing it. There was blood sucked to it.
バイバイ、たくみさん。
And then, in an instant, my body twisted. I felt like I was going to fall forward and tried to move my right leg out to stay upright. But my legs refused to move. I couldn't feel the bottom half of my body, but I felt an intense heat near my waist.
あれ
I collapsed, falling forward. My body wasn't doing what I told it to. I lifted myself up just a little with my hands, turning to look back at my body in confusion. Crimson blood poured from my waist. My intestines stuck out, slick and wet. Pink bits of flesh. This is nasty. Pink bits of flesh clung to my exposed white bone. God, a sliced open body. You know, it didn't feel like it could be. It didn't feel like it could be mine.
嘘でしょ
I looked up at Kozupi, unable to believe what I was seeing. Oh my god, the eyebrow. Look at the sassy eyebrow. Her eyes were filled with mockery. That's a great way to describe that face, actually. As she slowly brought the D-sword to her mouth, and with her cute tongue, slowly, as if she wanted to make sure I saw, she licked it. Ugh.
で
Oh, that was a great sound. Hold on.
で
I want to make that the alert on my phone.
で
My own delusion was making me sick, but I couldn't say for sure that it wouldn't become real. I took a few steps back from Kozupi, just in case the worst happened. I made sure I was ready to go at any time. So she saw that whole thing. Like, Kozupi was walking around the shop, holding her sword, as if she had no idea how I felt at all. She wasn't making any efforts to hide the weapon at all. Senna had been the same way. I'd seen her carrying her gigantic D-sword down the middle of Shibuya without any regard for the people around her. They were far too calm about it. Even if Kozupi wasn't working for Shogun, there was still something wrong with her. That's when I remembered the smell. The smell of blood. I remembered how I'd seen those Dokuns lying in puddles of their own blood.
あんなひどいことする人たちは死んで当然だよ。プンプン。
Alright, so she is in fact nuts. Alright, cool. Good. Establish that. Good. It is now on the table. So they were dead after all? Oh.
生きてる価値もないけど、あんなゴキゴキな人たちは。
Roachy roach people. Roachy roach?
ゴキブリ？
You know, I got it.
殺したかったな。
I could tell exactly how her heart was feeling when she said those words. There wasn't any malice inside her. As far as she was concerned, she was just giving bad people what they deserved, and there was nothing wrong with that at all.
最近渋谷はますます物騒だよ。昨日も怖そうなゴキゴキ男たちに拉致されそうになっちゃったから、ドカドカドカーってしてやったのら。
She might be twisted too, in a different way than me.
西条くん、こっちです。
Kozupi started walking again, carrying the huge D-sword in her hands. She was tiny, with thin arms. She looked so weak, and yet she didn't seem to struggle at all with the heavy-looking weapon. Many times, the blade came close to slamming into a shelf or a nearby shopper, and each time I covered my eyes, but miraculously, it didn't hit anyone. We ended up in a stairwell. It was dimly lit, and unlike the rest of the floor we were on, there was nobody here at all. Nobody came by either. It was shocking to me that just 5 minutes from Shibuya Station, and inside the Roft building, one of the most famous stores in Japan, there was a space that could be this empty.
ロフトだけじゃないのだ。デパートの階段って全然人がいないの。
I lived in Shibuya for almost 2 years and didn't know that. How had she figured that out? How had she figured it out in just a few weeks?
コズピーは東京に来てから毎日渋谷を歩き回ってたのら。
I imagine you pick up a lot if you could literally read people's minds.
それで見つけたの。憩いの場所だよ。
Kozupi sat down on the steps, clearly in a good mood. She casually set the D-sword down next to her. The pain in my side was getting too much for me to bear, so I decided to take a rest.
それで景色とか模様とか見ると別のものが見えたりしないかな。ゾウさんとかウサギさんとかライオンさんとか。一番おーって思ったのはオオサンショウウオさんに見えてた時。
What was she talking about?
理想度の話ですよ。うっぶー。何かの模様とか景色とか見ると動物さんとかいろんな形に見えることがあって。
Oh, that? Yeah, I'd seen that before. I tried to see something like that on top of the O-front building and succeeded. I'd seen the D-sword blended in with the scenery.
はい、ピンポンです。コズピーが最初に見えた時はハムポンポンが死んじゃった時。
Hamponpon?
小学生の時飼ってたハムスター。これでハムポンポンのお墓を作ってあげようって土手に行ったのら。でもスコップ忘れてお墓作れなくてふみゃーって泣いていたら、お空にこの剣の形が見えた。それからはいろんなところでよく見るようになったのら。
How did you get it, though? I'd found it, but I couldn't grab it. No matter how much I reached out, I couldn't touch it or grab it.
ただ願ったんだよ。
Wished? You wished to get the sword? But I did that too. Kozupi looked up at me, softly shaking her head.
違うのら。願ったのはね、殺してやりたいっていうこと。
She was gonna say that. Oh, that's... Ooh, boy. I could hear the voice of her mind clearly within my own. I hadn't mistaken it. I'd heard exactly what she said. My wish was to kill. She said it with a smile, too. The stairs leading up from the 5th floor of the Roth building and to its 6th floor were very quiet. You could only faintly hear the music coming from the shops. She didn't say a word, and neither did I. I could hear somebody's breath loudly in my ears. Was it hers? No, it was mine. A staircase where nobody came. A blind spot in the dead center of Shibuya, an air pocket. I gulped down saliva to wet my suddenly parched throat.
そう願いながら、ミューって空見たら、また剣が見えて。でも、その時まで剣とは思ってなかったよ。なんだかガキーンってしたものって思ってた。
Big clangy thing.
あれでブーンってやったら殺せるかなって無意識に手を伸ばしたら本当につかめたのら。
And then, what happened? What did you do? Oh, I killed them all. I killed them all.
殺そうとしたけどできなかった。コズピーの力じゃ半殺しにするのが精一杯だったのです。
Half killed them. This girl was broken.
壊れてないよ。ここに剣あるもん。
She was gazing lovingly at the sword next to her. I could tell from the way she was looking at it that she had complete trust in it. Her mind was telling me the same thing. Maybe I couldn't get the D-sword unless I was broken too. Wait, did this mean I wasn't broken already? Yeah, she didn't like that.
この剣が怖くて仕方なかった。
That's what she thought until she came to Tokyo. But now she felt differently. Now it was something precious, something very important to her. As long as she had the sword, there was nothing to be scared of. The sword would protect her. The sword was her heart. It was her other self. It was about 3 weeks ago that she'd changed her mind. Kozue had always had the power to hear what other people were thinking. She couldn't remember anymore when she'd first realized she had it. She thought she'd gone crazy, or that she was sick. In her own childish way, she thought she couldn't let anybody find out. She hadn't told anybody, not even her parents. Because of her power, she couldn't make any friends. It created a rift between her and her family, too. All the people around her started to think she was a little creepy, that her intuition was a little too good. Even after coming to Shibuya, she'd been scared to go to school. She hadn't wanted to talk to anybody. She thought they'd just find her creepy again. The first day she was supposed to go to school, and the day after that, and even the day after that, she'd skipped school and spent the day wandering around Shibuya instead. She knew the school must have contacted her parents. They must have known Kozue wasn't going, but the two of them didn't say anything to her at all. Kozue looked young enough to be mistaken for a middle schooler, and yet unlike back home in the countryside, nobody stopped her when she was out in the middle of the day. She'd spent days wandering around Shibuya. She'd found her peaceful little spot in the Roth stairwell, and every day she'd go there to sit. One day, she'd spent almost 4 hours there, until the sun finally began to set. Then she'd left Roth to go home. Raindrops were pouring from the dull gray sky. She hadn't brought an umbrella, but she neither looked up at the sky nor seemed to care about getting wet. She simply headed home through the rain on unsteady feet. Then she saw something in the corner of her eye. It was a sign that read, "The end is near." The handwritten text was blurring in the rain. Holding the board was a homeless man, sitting unobtrusively on the side of the road in the middle of the pouring rain. His head was slumped forward, and she couldn't see his expression. He might have been dead. The way he looked reminded her of how she'd been sitting in the Roth stairwell. She stopped. For a moment, she hesitated. She'd never met this man, and had never even seen a homeless person until she came to Tokyo. He looked repulsive. She was scared that if she talked to him, something horrible might happen to her. But there was another desire that won out over her fear, a desire to kill him. It was such a sudden, strong impulse that she thought that if she obeyed it, she might be able to kill herself too. So after a short moment's hesitation, she spoke to him with the voice in her mind.
世界は終わるの?
Suddenly his shoulders twitched. He wasn't dead after all. He slowly raised his head. His cloudy eyes peered through his soaked hair as he looked up at her.
ああ、終わるよ。
Kozue's eyes went a little wide with surprise. Not at being told that the world would end, but at the fact that the man had replied to her. She hadn't expected a reply. Most people she spoke to like this either tried to convince themselves they were hearing things, or got scared and quickly left. Even if she did succeed in communicating with somebody, it was hard for them to send back such a straightforward, understandable reply. Doing so was difficult. Human thought was disordered and random. But the man hadn't seemed surprised at all. Instead, he'd given her a short, simple answer. Through his voice, she could feel a deep sadness filling his heart. His heart was crying. That's how it felt to her.
君は剣を持っているね。
どうしてわかるの?
君のような子を他にも知っているから。
She put her hand above her head and summoned her D-sword. She pointed the blade at him.
この剣が見えるの?
見えないよ。
じゃあ、どうしてわかるの?
おじさんが悪い人だからだよ。すまない。
どうして謝るの?
おじさんのせいなんだ。
どうしておじさんのせいなの?
忠告しかできないから。動き出してしまったから。もうおじさんには止める術がないから。
じゃあ、 おじさんを殺せばコズピーは悪くなくなるの？
その剣は君を殺す者にも守る者にもなる。思い出してごらん。空を見れば雲が、川を見れば流れがそこにあったはず。それと同じこと。その剣はいつも君のそばにあった。自分自身の心を見てごらん。そこにあるのがその剣なんだよ。
でも殺したいって願ったらこれが手元にあったんだよ。この剣はコズピーとコズピーの周囲にあるあらゆるものを殺すためのものじゃないの？
負の感情は否定されるものじゃない。人が誰しも持つものだからね。特別じゃないんだ。どう向き合うかだよ。目をそらしてはいけない。自分を否定してはいけない。世界は共造。君の心の中にある性は同時に負となりうるし、その逆もまた可能。世界が終わるのか生き続けるのか、それを選べるのは君たちだけなんだ。
In the end, she hadn't killed the man. The desire to do so receded as they spoke. She didn't understand what the man was trying to say, but she thought and thought, as hard as she could, and finally reached a conclusion. The sword was her. She'd looked at it without denying it, and it had saved her. That's why she'd come to depend on it in her own pure-hearted way. Something in Kozupi's story made me curious. Who was that man? A homeless man with a big sign. It felt like I'd seen him a few times before, too. Were they the same person? What I couldn't figure out was how the guy would know about the D-swords. Maybe the D-swords were famous in Japan and I just didn't know it? No, there was no way. I looked over at Kozupi. Her expression was so calm and peaceful, it was hard to believe she'd been talking about killing people a moment ago. She ran her fingers softly along the surface of the D-sword.
そういえば、あのおじさん、別れ際にこんなこと言ってたのら。君たちは特別な存在だ。中でも一番特別なのは、その目、誰の目を産み落とした少年。らしいんだって。
What? Yeah. What? I was stunned. What did that mean?
西条くん、心当たりあるの？
いや、別に。
嘘ら。心は正直なんだよ。西条くんは今、ものすごーく関係ありますって考えてる。
Crap. It's hard when somebody knows your every thought.
なんか怖い顔になってる。その目、誰の目って西条くんが最初に考えたの？
I bit my lip and stood up. I pulled out the tissues I'd stuffed in my nose. The blood had stopped. Kozupi was looking up at me confused.
どこへ？
I'm going home. My side still hurt, but I walked down the stairs instead of using the escalator or the elevator. That way I was able to avoid the crowds on my way out. Kozupi followed me hesitantly at a distance, looking like she was about to cry.
コズピー、何か怒らせるようなこと言ったかな。
I ignored Kozupi's question and tried my hardest to think. This homeless man that Kozupi had met, was he working with Shogun? Otherwise, why would he bring up Whose Eyes Are Those? Who was the boy they were talking about who'd created Whose Eyes Are Those? Me? No, that couldn't be right. I wasn't a special boy. I wasn't a hero. I couldn't even get the D sword. I wanted to just be an ordinary person, an NPC. I didn't want to be special. I never wanted to go through anything like what happened to Ofront ever again. But then who was he talking about? I can only think of one possibility. The true new gen killer, Shogun. He might have looked like an old man, but he had the voice and figure of a young boy. And there was something very clearly weird about him too. He was special. 2 of the 6 new gen cases had involved the message, "Whose eyes are those?" It was a phrase I'd only ever used in my head. What could this seemingly innocuous phrase mean? Did it hide the reason that Shogun was after me? Should I try looking for that homeless man? He should be somewhere in the city. He was probably still carrying the sign with the weird message on it, too. What would I do if I found him? Again, I stopped, and then I shook my head and rejected the idea. What good would it do to find him? I might just be putting myself in more danger. He might be one of Shogun's servants, trying to lure me into a trap. What if I went to find the guy and triggered another quest? I'd experienced more than enough fear and pain already. It was probably the same for Kozupi. Why'd she come to me with the ability to speak directly in my mind right now? Maybe she was like Yua and taking orders from Shogun. From all that stuff she'd said about killing, or almost killing, people, she might even be involved with the New Gen murders. And Rimi had disappeared after the incident at Ofra. She'd stopped contacting me. Ayase was in the hospital after a failed suicide attempt. Nanami was safe, but the 2 people who were my allies were gone. Was there any guarantee that Rimi would come back? Was it even true that she'd just stopped coming to school? I only had Kozupi's word for that, and I couldn't tell if Kozupi was lying or not. I could feel the hairs on my body began to stand up on end. My world was just an empty, desolate place. I had nothing to believe in. Everything seemed like a lie.
それは被害妄想なのら。
Kozupi was standing right behind me. Her internal voice was as happy as ever. She was carrying her wicked-looking D-sword in her hands and looking up at me innocently. I looked away. Are you on my side or my enemy? Which? Did you come to kill me?
コズピはただ。
Just? Kozupi suddenly let out a weird shout. I looked up in surprise to see that she wasn't looking at me, but waving her hand off in a random direction.
セナさん見て。
Oh boy. Did she say Senna? Don't tell me. I followed where she was looking, and sure enough.
小杖か。
Oh, they're buddies. Oh, good. Senna Aoi was walking toward us, holding a D-sword and looking like she was in an extremely bad mood. I tensed up and got ready to run. What was Senna doing here? Is this another coincidence? Or a carefully planned trap? Did the 2 of them know each other? I mean, clearly. If so, had Kozupi called her? Maybe so the 2 of them could kill me together?
だからそれは被害妄想だよ。
But I don't know what to believe in. I'd met Senna several times, and she never tried to hurt me. But that didn't mean she wasn't my enemy. And she was scary. I mean, she did lift you up by the collar, like, in a very angry and threatening way that one time.
セナさんは怖くないよ。
Yeah, literal assault. Kozupi, don't say that where she can hear it.
怖い？
Oh my god.
何のことだ？
Just like I thought, Senna could hear Kozupi's voice, too.
なんでもないです。
I was freaking out, but Kozupi looked really happy. She was still staring at the ground, but she was smiling as she tugged at the hem of Senna's shirt. The sight of the two of them was so heartwarming that I started to feel stupid for being nervous. They were like sisters, the strong-willed big sister and the timid little sister who looked up to her more than anything else in the world. And they both had flat chests. What? What was that weird flash of them in like casual clothes? What the hell is happening? I feel like this game is eating my mind. No, wait, don't think that. Kosuke will hear you again. And if you're not careful, you could easily die here. Stop. What was the deal with these two? Did they know each other from school? They were in different grades. Maybe they were both connected by the fact that they had the swords. Or maybe they both worked for Shogun. I got into a cat's paw stance so that I could run at any moment. I don't know what that is. I'm gonna Google that also later. Specifically, I stood up on my tiptoes. Supposedly, this made it so you could run really fast. Like a cat. Okay, so I guess I don't have to Google it. I guess. I'd read about it in a manga once. Why does it keep...
コズピーが東京に来てから最初のお友達なのらね
Senna didn't answer. Instead, she just glared at me. I thought she might attack me with the sword in her hand, but she didn't seem to do anything. She didn't seem really upset that I called her scary either.
小杖どうしてこいつと
She seems pretty self-aware.
たくみちゃんはクラスメートです
She sounded really excited by it.
ほいでねたくみちゃんはコズピーの剣が見えるんだよ
それは知っているこいつもギガロマニアックス
A gigolo what?
ギガロマニアックス理想度が見える人のことたくみちゃんもそうだよ
Gigolomaniac. Who the hell had picked that name? And if it had a name, did that mean it was more common than I thought it was?
あはセナさんはガルガリ君買いに行くとこなんですね
Garugari Kunbar? Oh, the ice cream. Right.
それは
Evidently, Kozuki had read Senna's mind. Come to think of it, Senna had been eating a Garugari Kunbar the last time we met, too. It was almost winter. With the weather this cold, I couldn't understand why anybody would want to eat popsicles. She must have just really liked them.
ほいじゃみんなで一緒に行きましょう
I heard Kozupi's voice speak into my head as she playfully grabbed Senna's hand and started to walk.
たくみちゃんもはーやく
いや僕は
I turned to leave, but... Suddenly, Kozupi's eyes were filled with tears. She silently pleaded to me with her wet eyes. Next to her, Senna was looking like she was ready to bite my head off.
ついてこいお前にもおごってやる
The most threatening offer of all time. From the look of it, Senna was weak to Kozupi's teary eyes attack too. She motioned to me reluctantly, and we started heading toward the convenience store right behind the police box. We each bought a Garugari-kun, and the two of them sat down on the railings in front of the police box and began to nibble on their popsicles. Kozupi looked really happy. Senna looked straight-faced. I like how Senna's the only one that has like the portrait with the popsicle. Like it's so intrinsic to her character that they actually have that of her. No one else gets a popsicle now. That's really funny. I was right on the verge from passing out from fear. There was a cop right in front of the police box. The girls didn't seem concerned in the slightest that they were violating Japan's laws against deadly weapons right in front of his face. And what was the cop's problem? I could see the two giant swords right in front of his face just fine. But instead of arresting them, he was ignoring them. I mean, at this, like, he can't see them. It's like, we've established that, like, so many times over. They can't see them. Since Kozupi was watching, I had no choice but to start nibbling my Garu-Gari-kun. I'll never be able to say that, like, normally. I was intensely focused on where the people around us were looking. Senna and Kozupi were cute. The sight of two cute, flat-chested sisters and a creepy otaku like me standing out in the winter cold and eating popsicles was so surreal that we were sure to stand out. Or was I being paranoid after all? I could still hear the chuckles of my classmates. Was I hearing things? Was I imagining them? I didn't want to stand out. I didn't want to be seen. I was scared of other people's gazes. I should have worn a hat. I wanted to get out of here as soon as possible. I decided the fastest way to do this was to chow down on my popsicle. As I did, though, my body started to freeze. This was definitely going to give me diarrhea later. And weren't the two of them cold?
で、梢。なぜこいつと一緒なんだ？
こいつじゃなくて、たくみさんですよ。たくみさんが悪い人にいじめられてて倒れてたのら。だからコズピーが解放してあげたの。
Did she nurse me?
ディソードを使ったのか？
殺したかったとかバキって。
Kozupi tried to mimic the motion of killing someone with her hands. But since one hand was holding the huge D-sword, she had to do it with the other. And of course, the other hand held her Garu-Gari-kun. Her popsicle, which she hadn't taken a single bite out of, flew out of her hand in a perfect arc. Then it landed on the ground and shattered. Kozupi looked at the remains of her popsicle with tears in her eyes.
うかつな真似は避けろと言っただろ。アイスのことじゃない。ディソードのことだ。
Senna handed Kozupi her half-eaten Garu-Gari-kun. Evidently, she was giving it to her. Kozupi smiled through her tears and bobbed her head in thanks. I didn't realize that Senna could be so nice. That was surprising.
でも悪い人には罰ゲームをするのが当たり前だよ。
Who was it who hurt those thugs so badly? Was it Kozupi? Or was it me?
たくみさんセナさんはね、すごーく何でも知ってるんだよ。リソードっていう名前もセナさんに教えてもらったのら。あとリアルブータ、あれれ、ブッダ
Real butts?
リアルブート。
Real butts.
そうそう。
What was that? I'd never heard that word before. Or gigolo what's, or that gigolo what's it word for that matter.
リアルブートしてない件は誰にも見えなかったはずなのにね。セナさんにだけ見えてたの。リソードが見える人に会ったの、セナさんが初めてだったんだ。その時はおひゃーって思って、なんで見えるんですかって聞いちゃった。ギガロマニアックスだからなんだって。
ギガロマニアックスって何なの？
さっき言ったのら。剣が見える人だよ。
No, I meant more specifically. Like, how does it work?
ディラックの海に干渉できる力を持つもの。
What? The what now? The who's a what's it? A concept in quantum physics proposed by physicist Paul Dirac. which describes an unobservable soup of every kind of particle found distributed equally all throughout the universe. Part of whole theory, which is related to the wave equation, Dirac equation, that ties together quantum physics and relativity. Dirac defined a vacuum as a space packed tightly with negatively charged elementary particles to the point where no new negative energy particles could be created. This vacuum is the Dirac Sea. I got like 30% of that, to be honest. Okay.
それがギガロマニアックスだ。
Okay. Senna answered instead.
ディラックの海。
Senna glanced at me contemptuously when I didn't recognize the term. Why are you looking at me like that? I'm actually pretty smart, you know. I vaguely remembered the Dirac Sea being some concept in quantum physics.
負のエネルギーでいっぱいに満たされた観測不能の境界面とかだっけ？
大雑把に言えばそんなようなものだ。そしてそこに干渉するための端末がディソード。ディラックの海に突っ込んだパイプの先端と考えればいい。ディラックの海とつながっているからディソードも負の物質で構成されている。無限に崩壊している存在なんだ。
Matter whose weight is lighter than zero. Negative matter is impossible to observe. All matter in the universe has a minimum amount of energy required for it to exist in a stable state. If that amount were to go below zero, the matter would enter a state of infinite continual collapse.
だから普段は普通の人間には触れることも見ることもできない妄想のようなものでしかない。このディソードこそあらゆるリアルブートのためのショートカット的役割を果たす。ディソードとディラックの海とのチャネルを大きくすることでディラック方程式の空港理論によって追生成が起き粒子と反粒子を作り出せる。
Alright, apparently it's school time. Apparently I'm in freaking school now because I'm just learning. Alright. I don't know what an elementary particle is. Come on now. I'll read it anyways. Elementary particles are the smallest particles that make up matter. It should be noted, however, that this term is not strictly defined. A particle whose charge is opposite that of another is said to be its antiparticle. Dirac's whole theory predicted that pair production at the whole in a vacuum boundary would create antiparticles, positively charged electrons. Pair production. A phenomenon seen when a large amount of energy collides with an atomic nucleus, and a particle and antiparticle are created. In Dirac's whole theory, this means the collapse of a vacuum. When a particle and antiparticle collide, pair annihilation occurs. The Dirac equation. Oh my god. Oh, it's too late for this. It's too late for science. The Dirac equation, derived by physicist Paul Dirac, I don't know how to pronounce it, I'm just Dirac, gave puzzling indications of the existence of electrons with negative energy, which had not been thought to exist until that point. Whole theory, the theory which describes the Dirac Sea, was introduced to explain this anomaly. The Dirac Sea is thought to, well, there should be a period there. The Dirac Sea is thought to be impossible to observe under normal circumstances. It is a space filled with infinitely collapsing matter and is thus invisible to the eye. However, applying a large amount of energy to the Dirac Sea's vacuum boundary would cause the vacuum to temporarily collapse. Negative energy electrons would then turn into positive energy electrons and pierce through the boundary. Successful observation of these electrons would prove the existence of the Dirac Sea. Great.
この粒子がギガロマニアックスが生み出す妄想、世界にとってのエラー。そのエラーを現実とするには作り出した粒子を他人のデッドスポットに送り込めばいい。粒子は即座に電気信号に変換され周囲の人間に共通の認識、現実として成立する。逆に消したいときは粒子を送り込んだデッドスポットに 今度は反粒子を送り込み追消滅してやればいい。
Okay. Come to think of it, Senna had said something similar before.
世界の仕組みは3つの数字で全て説明できる。0と1、そしてマイナス1。ディソードはそのマイナス1を生み出すためのショートカットになる。
This was starting to make my head hurt. You and me both, my dude.
周囲の人間に共通の認識となると妄想が現実になるってどういうこと？
例えばお前が今手にしているガルガリ君、お前にはどう見える？
どうって水色をしたアイス。
その水色のアイスは本当に現実だと証明できるか？
What else could it be? Could it be but a Garigari-kun, though? You could recognize it instantly by its distinctive color, and if you ate it, it would feel cold. It should be common sense, but...
人は目で見たものを脳が認識して初めてそれが水色のアイスと理解できる。でも脳が本人の意識しないままに嘘をついている可能性だってあるんだぞ。脳が生み出した自分一人だけがそう思い込んでいる妄想かもしれないんだ。
じゃあどうやって現実だって証明するの？
他の人もお前の持っているものが水色のアイスであると観測すれば、それは2人以上の人間の共通の認識となる。お前一人だけの妄想じゃなくなるんだ。妄想を現実にするときにはそれを逆説的に捉えればいい。
So, in other words, you could create a delusion in your own mind, and using the particles created by the D-Sword, force the other people around you to see it, thereby making it real. And I had this power too?
とにかくこの剣は普通の人には見えないの。
Kozupi gave the Garigari-kun back to Senna and suddenly ran out toward the street. For some reason, she began to swing the D-sword at the people around her.
やめ！
I covered my eyes. She'd finally revealed her true nature. Kozupi was actually an insane killer. I mean, that still might be true. She scares me. The street must be covered in blood right now. One thwack with that gigantic sword and you'd be sliced in two. Kozupi would be arrested on the spot. We were right in front of a police box after all. The cops would have seen the whole thing.
たくみさん、そんなことにはなってないよ。
Why was it so quiet? She just killed those people with a sword, in broad daylight, in the middle of Shibuya. But nobody was screaming. I couldn't hear any cops shouting either. I slowly opened my eyes. Nothing had happened. Kozupi was still swinging around the sword, though now she looked a little embarrassed. It was colliding with other people, with railings, with the ground, but nothing happened. It wasn't cutting anything. In fact, the sword was going right through it all, as if everything around it was just an illusion. No, that wasn't right. It was the other way around. The sword was what didn't exist. I'm reaching it. I'm reaching. People around her weren't reacting at all. They couldn't see it. Does he really not realize this at this point? I feel like he's had this understanding by this point, right? At the very least, he knows normal people can't see it. He's just like, did he not realize this by now? I swear.
理想度は妄想の剣なのだ。
Ayase had said something similar once, actually. She had said that only those with the power could see the sword. Next to me, Senna. Maybe he's just really slow. Is he just? I don't. Or maybe he's just got brain damage from the beating he took earlier. Again, I guess I should be a little give him a little more slack because of that. I feel like I'm going crazy, and it's not helping. Next to me, Senna sighed in annoyance and nibbled on her Garugari-kun.
あのディソードは今は梢の作ったエラーでしかない。周囲共通認識はまだ成立していない。
リアルブートしたらみんなに見えるようになるのです。
Real booting. That would be when you send particles into other people's dead spots, right? Not that I was sure what a dead spot was.
ズシャーってしたり、ドガーってできるようにもなるよ。
I'd like it a lot more if she used words instead of sound effects. But I kinda got the basic idea. Swash was probably swinging the sword, and Kerthwack would be hitting with it. What was she swinging at, and what was she hitting? Was Kozupi really doing something so scary? And did I have that power too? No, I wasn't special. I'm not a gigalomaniac, whatever that is. That's why I couldn't get the D sword.
剣は見えたよね。だからそのうち匠さんも持てるの。
I can't. Even when all that stuff was happening at Ofront, I couldn't get it. I could see it, but I didn't know how to grab it.
どうやって手に入れるかっていうと。
Kozupi looked at Senna expectantly. Senna sighed again.
バイオリズムの上昇によって中脳変影系ニューロンのドーパミンが過剰分泌された時、ディソードは現れる。それは危機的な状況や興奮、悲しみ、憎しみ、笑いなど人それぞれだ。
So that explains the whole rooftop hostage thing and also getting beat up in an alley. The second one was a lot less subtle, though.
ドーパミン分泌量が多ければそれだけ観測しやすくなる。
匠さん、そういうことなのら。
Senna's knowledge was incredible. It was possible that she was incredibly smart. Possible. Just possible. Actually, she knew so much that there might be an entire field of study on this. Call it gigalomaniacology or something. I could almost guarantee that no other teenage girl in Japan could talk about such complicated things and use such technical terms. Where'd she learn all this? Why did I keep meeting all these mysterious people? Somebody, please give me that answer. I'm tired of thinking. Mood. It made me feel sick, knowing only a few hints, but nothing that really mattered. But I didn't feel like looking into it myself, because none of these people were normal. Whoops. Bitterly, I took the last bite from the melted Garugari-kun popsicle.
当たりだ。
Near the bottom of the stick, I could see the word winner. Kozupi had come back, and was now looking at the stick in my hands.
匠さん、すっごいね。
大した運だな。
セナさん、自分も当たりが出て欲しかったって羨ましがってるのら。
そんなことは思っていない。
I don't think you can fool Kozupi like that. She knows exactly what you're thinking.
セナさんはいつも当たりが出ないかなとワクワクしながらガルガリ君を食べてるのら。
What do you
当たり
win?
を引いたのはどれくらい？
Is it like good?
1割3分の何。
That's not even that bad. Those aren't even bad odds. She'd calculated it really precisely. She must have kept a running tally with each one she ate. Senna finished her Garugari-kun. She glared at her stick and grunted. I could tell from the look on her face that she wasn't winning. Oh my god. No green! I have sworn off green! I nervously offered her the winning popsicle stick.
他人に施しを受けるつもりはない。私は自分の可能性を試しているだけだ。
でも本心では欲しいっ 言ってるね。
あげますよ。僕アイスはあんまり食べないし。
You just went like a free popsicle. That's probably what it is. I said, trying to be considerate, but Senna just glanced at me, ignoring my offer. That's not a face I was expecting. And then, for some reason, she offered me her own stick. And she was offering it without any explanation at all, too. If it wasn't a winner that you could redeem for another popsicle, there was no point in having it. Or was this her way of telling me to go to the convenience store and throw it in the garbage? Knowing her, that was entirely possible. Senna probably had a whole bunch of wimpy guys like me she used as her personal errand boys. She thought I was so wimpy, I'd be her personal slave. But if I disobeyed, there was no telling what she might do. I bit my lip and took it.
私の勝ち。
Senna's gaze was locked on a piece of sky peeking out between the high-rise buildings as she spoke. I sighed, looked at the non-winning stick, and gasped. Oh my god. What the hell is happening? What was this?
先週出た渋谷限定品だ。ただの当たりより価値がある。
Senna looked satisfied as she explained. Was she bragging?
だから私の勝ち。
What kind of competition was this anyway? And anyway, this... What? Was this... And anyway, I... Oh god. And anyway, this winning stick was kind of creepy. I didn't want it. Tried to hand it back to Senna, somehow managing to resist the impulse to snap it in two.
それよりお前。
たくみさんですよ。
たくみさんなのか。
違う。シャンはつけなくても。
名前は？
I was pretty sure I'd given it to her before, but evidently she'd forgotten it.
西条匠です。
だったら西条。もうこれ以上エラーを作るのはやめておけ。
は？
なんで？剣は自分の心なのら否定しちゃダメ。コズピーはこの剣のおかげで助かったよ。
Only here because of the sword. What had happened in her past? I was also curious about that wish to kill she'd mentioned before, too.
妄想を現実にする行為にはリスクがつきまとう。粒子とともに追生成される反粒子はディソードにストックされていくんだ。反粒子は数学的に言えば過去へ向かうものだから。ストックすればするほどギガロマニアックスには現在の状態とのズレが発生し、やがてその矛盾により存在としての自己崩壊へ至る。
These two speak Japanese K thanks.
梢もあまりディソードを出すのはやめるんだ。普通に生活していきたいなら私の忠告を聞け。これはお前たちの命に関わる話だ。
Senna didn't seem to be joking. She didn't seem like the type who ever joked.
ましてや西条、お前はディソードなしでリアルブートした。本来ならそんなことできるはずがないんだ。リラックの海にはディソードを通してしか干渉できないんだから。お前は普通じゃない。奴らに目をつけられてもおかしくない。
奴らって？
ギガロマニアックスの力を悪用しようとしている連中がいる。
それって将軍？
知らない。誰だそれは。
Kozupi, did Senna just lie to me?
ついてないよ。
西条、将軍とは
I don't like that face either.
誰だ。
The coldness in her voice made me shudder. Suddenly, I couldn't look her in the eye. She grabbed me by the collar. I hurt to breathe. Man, she keeps doing this. She's so aggressive. Why did it have to be so? Why did she have to be so violent? That's exactly what I'm saying. Did I do something wrong?
そいつは40代ぐらいの男か。
違うよ。小さなじいさんだよ。
Senna immediately let go.
そいつもギガロマニアックスなのか。
わからない。
Probably.
でもニュ
Honestly.
ージェネの真犯人だよ。
真犯人だと。
Senna put her fingers up to her chin and began to think. The mood had suddenly turned sour. I felt a strange, indescribable fear. Senna knew something. But what? Who were these people who were trying to use the power of the Gigalomaniacs for evil?
そうだそうだ、3人で記念撮影しましょう。ほらあれ。
Suddenly, Kozupi's cheerful voice broke the silence. I looked to see where she was pointing. It was... an arcade next to the police box. She wanted to take a picture there. That could only mean... they have the swords. Exactly what I thought it did.
たくみちゃん。
Oh my god, this poor kid.
真ん中。
His face.
いや僕は。
セナさん、横見てたらダメです。
私はこういうのは。
コズピーだって初めてなのだ。ドキドキ。
Kozupi began tapping the buttons on the photo booth's console. A voice came from the screen before Senna and I could get ready.
はい、ポーズ。パシャッ。
The photo it took didn't show the D swords. That makes sense.
ほいじゃあね。また明日なのら。
Kozupi smiled and waved a little as she disappeared beyond the turnstiles. Senna and I watched her go. I would have preferred that she didn't leave me alone. Leave me along with Senna. I think they meant to say alone, but that's fine. Don't leave me along with her. But from the looks of things, with the look, oh my god, I make fun of the typos and then I can't read a simple word. Like, I get it. That's embarrassing. But from the looks of things, look, oh my god. But from the look of things, she wasn't ready to leave Shibuya yet. Was she going to wander around here like she always did? I wanted to head home immediately. But first, there was something I needed to ask this professor of gigolomaniacology. Senna just ignored me, frowning. She was a little better when Kozupi was around, but she was still so hard to deal with. My heart was pounding so fast, but I figured she had to at least be hearing me, so I asked my question.
コズピーの心の声もギガロマニアックスの能力なの。
I wasn't expecting an answer. I assumed she'd just give me a and that would be the end of it. Senna gave me a glance before looking out over the big TVs at the Scramble Crossing.
心の声はいわば妄想だ。
She actually answered.
梢はそれを他人のデッドスポットに送り込んでいるに過ぎない。仕組みはさっき説明したものと何も変わらない。
I mean, that makes no sense as far as hearing people's thoughts, though. Like,
送り込んだ粒子を映像ではなく音声に変換しているんだ。電話と同じだな。そして梢から心の声という妄想を送り込まれたことで、お前と梢の間で周囲共通認識が成立したんだ。テレパシーで会話しているように思えるが全然違う。
だったら僕の心の声はどうしてコズピーに届いたの？
I certainly wasn't sending any delusions into her dead spots or whatever. It should be one-way communication. But we were able to talk to each other regardless.
ギガロマニアックスは他人の妄想を見ることができる。梢は特にその能力が高い。他人が垂れ流す妄想をほぼ強制的に見せられていると言ってもいい。
Seeing delusions? Was that possible? I couldn't do that. So maybe I wasn't a gigglomaniac after all. Senna's eyes suddenly became distant as she turned her gaze from the televisions to the people walking through the crossing.
ギガロマニアックスとなったものは誰だろうと一度は壊れているんだよ。
壊れたって何が？
心がだ。梢は東京に来る前、奴らに追い詰められて心を壊した。
Senna began to tell me what Kozupi had experienced before coming to my school. When she first met Kozupi, she'd seen what had happened, like a video. Oh no. Oh boy. Kozue had always had the strange ability to read other people's minds. She'd managed, with great effort, to come to terms with her power and hide it from other people, and lead something of a normal life. Then the mirrors appeared. After she started high school, Kozue started seeing mirrors everywhere. At first, she thought it was just a coincidence. It only happened maybe twice a day. Then, as time passed, it happened more and more. She would run into people holding mirrors more than 10 times a day. The encounters themselves were nothing special. A person on the street would be holding a mirror. A classmate would be doing their makeup in the bathroom. But whether it was coincidence or deliberate, it always seemed to end up that she'd see her reflection. And eventually, the ones with the mirrors, both men and women, would start to laugh. They'd say in their minds, "Who are you?" In the classroom, at school, on trains, when she was out shopping, she'd see them everywhere she went. It wasn't any one person. In fact, it was a different person each time. But Kozue became suspicious of everyone holding a mirror. Became suspicious of everyone who was laughing. It wasn't long after that when people who weren't holding mirrors seemed to be saying, "Who are you?" She was on the verge of having a breakdown as the voices of their minds echoed in her ears again and again. One day, Kozue looked at herself in the mirror and whispered,
お前は誰？
The moment she spoke, she was terrified that she might soon no longer know who she was. There was a girl on the other side of the mirror, with the same face as her, speaking back.
お前は誰？
That's when she stopped speaking. She stopped being able to look at mirrors, too. The voices asking, "Who are you?" didn't go away. She couldn't even tell whose voices they were anymore. She was like a broken fax machine that couldn't refuse incoming calls. Her power made sure that she heard others' voices whenever she wanted to or not. There was nothing she could do. Kozue's mind was falling apart. Then one day, in her second year of high school, she was staying late cleaning up. 3 of her classmates were whispering to each other as they did their makeup, with mirrors in hand. Mirrors and laughter. And then the voices asking, "Who are you?" Whether it was the voices of her 3 classmates' minds or just a hallucination, it didn't even matter anymore. As she trembled in fear, she saw herself reflected in the mirrors. Her vision went dark for a moment. Was it deliberate or chance? It didn't even matter anymore. Her mind had been under so much pressure for a year that it finally snapped. The next thing she knew, she was screaming, and a murderous instinct had overcome her. She saw the D-sword in the corner of her eye, and for the first time, she grabbed it. And then she attacked them. All 3 had their mirrors in their right hands, and within a second, she used her real-booted D-sword to slice their hands off. Yikes. Alright, I gotta go. That's all. Oops. Didn't mean to do that. Yeah, I'm out. I gotta take a break from my brain. Oh, would you look at that? I'm not a 7. So that's all there is. That's all, folks. Oh, my brain. My poor little brain. All right. Bye.